Business. My name is Ronit, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Juno. And we do this masterclass every week. And the goal of our masterclass is to help you connect with industry leaders, learn from them, people who have been there, done that, and so that you can implement them right away. Uh, Before I introduce Piyush, because definitely there's a lot to talk about him, but I just like to inform that we are hosting Mr. R. Mukund, who is the author of the book Don't Sell, Make Them Buy next week, which is on 11 November. So please do register for that, which starts on Monday. And yeah, now I'll quickly, not wasting any time, I'll introduce Piyush. So Piyush is the director of sales at Rephrase.ai, and he has been there for almost a year and a half, if I'm not wrong. And before this, he was working with LinkedIn and companies like Citrus and an alumnus of NMIMS. Uh, but all of these overshadows the 5 consecutive LinkedIn Club Award that he has won. And that's something that I have known when I was working at LinkedIn. So definitely he'll speak about that as well. So that's a big thing at LinkedIn because the top 10 percentile of the sales folks get to qualify for the LinkedIn Club Award, and 5 consecutive times. That's a big deal. And he made it look like a cakewalk. So yeah. So thank you so much, Piyush, and looking forward to the session on curiosity in sales. Over to you, Piyush.
Not able to unmute.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
please.
perfect, perfect. Uh, I don't intend to directly talk about my club journey, but yes, if anybody wants to know at the end of the session, I'll be more than happy to chat and discuss more about it. But super excited to be here and talking with all of you. And like while Ronit has talked about some of the things that I've done, what I would before I again talk a little bit about myself again, what I would like to do is if everybody here can type in the chat, how are you feeling today? And what is it that you are excited about for this session? Maybe a one word answer or a one liner would be really good while I prepare to start to share my screen. Ronnie, just let me know. I'm just
Yeah, so people
uh,
have started writing curious, feeling great. Uh, People are looking forward to the session. But yeah, curious is something that caught my eye. So yeah, something that about the topics, yeah, they are looking forward to it.
perfect, perfect. Uh, I hope everyone can see my screen, Ronnie. It's all fine.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right then, awesome. So yeah, while Ronit has told everything about what I've done so far, but so yeah, I got into sales by accident, and thank God for that. That stars aligned, which got me into sales, and yeah, my first ever job was in sales. I was not intending for that to happen, but and after that, I ended up doing my MBA with an MIMS, and then been in sales ever since. At the moment, I'm working as director of sales and business development at Rephrase.ai. We are a text to video generative AI company. We are doing some amazing work. You guys can check our website. And before that, I was at LinkedIn for good 7 years. And a lot of things that I'm going to talk about is from the learning that I had in those 7 years where I got a chance to meet some of the brightest or the best salespeople. And I got trained by some of the best and some of the best practices all around. Um, and yes, so let's get into it. Um, to chat, and maybe at the end of it we all can discuss, is curiosity important in sales? And before I start talking about, like, get into this, I just want to share two perspectives that I've heard and which has sort of shaped the way I think about sales, or how has it been, right? So the first perspective, where it says job of a salesperson is not to sell, but to solve a problem. Now, when we are selling, there are two parties here, right? One is us, and the second is the buyer or the prospect. When, like, more often than not, or I used to initially think about, hey, I have to go sell the product, I have to convince them that this is really good. But then when I read this, I think, oh, and this changed my perspective completely, because it says I do not have to put myself or my product at the center, but I have to put the customer and their problem at the center. I have to put myself in their shoe, try and understand what is the problem that they have, and how can me or my product solve that problem. And once I started thinking that way, it changed the whole thing for me in terms of how do I go about preparing for the meeting, how do I go about continuing my conversation, and eventually how do I end up closing my discussion. So this has been like a really impactful statement for me. The second, which is something what I came across like a few months back, where it says more than half of the sales discussion end up resulting in no purchase. Now, and there can be various reasons for it. It can be that, hey, the company was just trying to see what this technology can do. In a lot of complex sales, there are a lot of people who get involved in decision making, and there was no consensus, and probably the sale sort of fell through. It can also be that the company did not see value in the product. But if you look at it, the onus still lies with us now, right? As salespeople, to understand what is the value, what is the definition of value for that company is, and try and see how can we convince them that we can solve their problem. So in both the statement, it sort of brings back the focus on how do we go about leading our conversation. And for that, let's just see how a typical sales process looks like, right? Uh, this is what a typical B2B sales process looks like. I'm hoping most of you will agree this is how it looks. If anybody has any other sort of idea about this, more like put that in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to chat about it later. Um, so in a normal process, what we do is we prospect, we do cold outreaches, in mails, emails. We get a lot of inbound requests from companies. We prospect, we set up the meetings. When the meeting is set, we go in the meeting, we qualify, we try and understand what are the problems, try and position our product. Um, Once that is done, we go send out the proposal, and of course, there are multiple loops in between proposal and negotiation. When the negotiation happens, we get that elusive win, we close the deal. And once a deal is closed, we then work with the customer to showcase value, continue to make sure that they see value, and then they renew with us, right? So that's how it like if it's a typical sales process looks like. And while there are various and multiple skills which are at play when we look at this process, there are two large skills that I want to focus on, right? Number one, which is for the bottom four part, is perseverance. And I cannot fall short of telling the importance of perseverance in the entire sales process or as a skill that all of us in sales should have. And just to give you an example, um, when I joined LinkedIn in the first quarter, I started working on a company which I eventually closed 6 months before I was leaving LinkedIn. So it took me 6 years to close that particular account. And it wasn't just me who was working on it. I had colleagues who were working on it a few years before I joined LinkedIn. So it took a lot of time to close that conversation. So it's not just one hour conversation, it happens a lot of times. So it needs a lot of patience, not just from the employee standpoint or for us, but also company needs to be a lot of patient about something. So perseverance is really important. But I'm here to talk about what is the skill that is required for the first two part of the sales pipeline. Any guesses on what that skill can be that I want to talk about? Anybody wants to take a shot, type it in the chat?
Yeah, people can just type it in the chat and I can help Piyush with that. Lead generation, Srinivas as marketing skill by Rajesh, impatience, cold calling.
Let me give you a hint. It's part of the like it's in the session's headline.
Customer follow up. So curiosity is the answer, Piyush?
Oh yes,
Oh,
people have now gotten it. Absolutely, yes. The skill
okay,
that I
yeah.
want to talk about is curiosity, and how does it sort of help in the first helps in setting up the tone of the conversation that we are going to have with the customer, because during the prospecting stage and qualification stage is where we can showcase the value that our product will bring to the customer. We can ask all the questions, difficult questions. We can build the trust with the team, with the ecosystem, right? For us to then try and closing that deal and deal at the value, which essentially adds to the whole ecosystem for us. So curiosity is something what is really, really important in the first two parts. Like when we start discussing with a specific set of organization, right? And which brings me to the question of and it's all about setting up the meeting. So how should we all look at how do we go and lead a meeting, right? Now, the first thing, like whenever we get into meeting with any company, think of it as it as an opportunity for us to solve a problem. Again, when somebody is ready to talk with you, they might have something that they want to solve for, right? So think of it, how can we solve it? It's an opportunity for us to solve a problem for a new company or for a person. It's an opportunity for us to showcase our thought leadership, where a lot of time, by the way, people do not even realize that it's a problem that they can solve for. It's a problem that they have, which similar companies in their industry are not facing. So it's again is an opportunity for us. And as salespeople, we are sort of privileged because we have so much of conversations, right? Day in, day out with companies in different industry, different geographies, using some of those knowledges to have much better conversation with the next prospect. So it's an opportunity for us to showcase our thought leadership. It's an opportunity for us to listen and learn something new, that again which we can use in our future pitches, which we can use in the way we approach things professionally and personally as well. It gets really, really amazing, right? If we approach our meetings that way, and if we do all of these things, a meeting is also an opportunity to earn the right to ask the deeper question, because that is where we understand how are they thinking about the problem that they have, right? We cannot directly on the first call or straight up go and ask, hey, what's your budget, or what's the sales process, or things which can be a little more difficult for somebody to answer without they knowing you well enough. But once we've established the trust, once we've showcased that hey, we mean business, we can then ask deeper question, and trust me, people will not have any issue in terms of answering those questions for you, right? And something what is very important for us to remember, that typically sales win rate is 5 to 20%. I'm giving out a wider range here because in different industry it can be very different. But the point is, we end up winning, we end up losing more deals than we win typically, right? But we have to think of it like we either win or we learn, because every deal that doesn't close for us, we learn something that we can use in our next conversation. We learn something that we can use in our pitch. We learn something that we can use in the similar company, in the similar industry, and try and close somebody else. So it is something what it like, which is very important and something what we need to approach meeting at. And hey, this is not just the problem that salespeople have. It's a problem that pretty much everybody has. And um, like something what the the goat of basketball, or for a lot of people across the world, he's the greatest sports person ever lived. This is what he said, that I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career, lost more than 3,300 games, lost games 26 times when my team was when my team trusted me to take the final shot, and he failed over and over and over again, and that's why he succeeded, right? So it's about what is it that we learn from things when it doesn't go right for us, and how do we inculcate those when the conversation is going right, because it's not about winning everything. It's about when we are winning something, are we winning it at the right value, and are we winning with the right intent. So that is what is very important, right? So that begs the question of that, hey, if meeting is so important, or the first two parts of the sales process are so important, how do we go about preparing for it, right? Now, again, two aspects to this, right? Number one being, it is always given that you will know or you should know everything about the product and the services that you are selling, right? All the features, everything that's happening within the company, right? So that is always given. My focus here is to understand, or how do we prepare on the other side about how do we try and find out more about the customer, right? And there is a very simple framework that I use, what we call as a 3 by 3 framework, right? And these are the three things that I, every single time that I go for a meeting, I try and find out about. Number one, try and find out about the industry of that company, right? The second thing that I want to find out about what's happening within the company. And the third, all the people that I'm gonna meet in that on that conversation, and also try and find out about all the information about who can be potentially important person for me in that conversation, right? So these are three things which are really, really important, which sets the base for us as a thumb rule, or as a way to sort of understand more about the company. Now let's get into one by one as to when I say industry, how do we go about it, right? The first thing that I do when I want to research, or something what has been the biggest source of information for me has been a newspaper. Um, how many here still read physical newspaper, like every morning read newspaper in hand? Like how many here? Maybe if you can just type +1 in the chat saying I do.
That's a great question, Piyush. I think I don't read. Okay, there are people. Okay, would like to call out Indresh, Kirti, Shivam, Abdullah, uh, Nilesh. Okay, there are a lot of people.
Awesome, awesome. Glad to know that
Rakshit.
I'm in a great company here, because I do it, like
Yes,
I said, very religiously, and it's a huge source of information, because we not only get complete perspective of what's happening in the business section, but also political, all of that. And there are so many things which impacts a specific industry. Like you would know, recently government uh, just proposed a taxation on all the online gaming companies, right? And that just changes a lot of companies. If somebody in sales was trying to close those deals, becoming more and more difficult. So knowing how something can change, it is really important for us to understand. So one, I religiously read newspaper and get a lot of information around that. The second thing that I do is I lead a lot of reports. Now reports can come from a Gartner, or come from a lot of institutes, right? Government institutes, or a lot of consulting companies who release a lot of reports around industry, around specific companies, around specific trends. I also listen to a lot of talks by the leaders, right? Which is there on YouTube, through podcast, on LinkedIn website, right? So on and so forth, which again help me build that insight about what's happening within the industry. The third thing is I try and apply this framework called PESTLE. Now, in PESTLE, like each word signifies a word. So P stands for political, right? So today we know there is a war going on in the Middle East. Now, that does impact certain industry a lot more than some other industry. So knowing that this can change the business, it can have business impact in a certain company that you're talking with. It's really important for us to know, right? T stands for technology. We know generative AI is impacting every industry in a specific way. So how is that impacting, let's say, a software services industry versus a financial industry? It's really important for us to understand read because it can lead to some really interesting and important discussions for us. So these are some of the things that I do to prepare or get more information on industry. Then I go about preparing or researching more about the company. Of course, like no prizes for guessing. The first place that we go, or I go, is on the website. I read about the about a section on the website. I go through all the blogs that they have, where they release about the new trends that they're working on, all the information which can be really interesting for us to have conversation with, right? Second thing that I do is I go on LinkedIn, type in the company name, go through the posts that the company is posting on LinkedIn, and more often than not, companies have started using LinkedIn very, very aggressively. So when I was at LinkedIn at the start of my career, at LinkedIn, we had limited number of companies, or the awareness within Indian market about what LinkedIn can do was not that much. But now pretty much every company uses LinkedIn very, very religiously. And as a salesperson, it's very important for us to understand or go through those. Like imagine a company celebrating their 10th anniversary, and then they put the employee pictures. It's a great news that we, or a great information that we find. And imagine if you have call with somebody tomorrow, the first statement that you can use that, hey, congratulations for raising your Series B funds, or for celebrating your 10th anniversary, or any other milestone that company is celebrating. It's just about helping us to break that ice. And the third thing that I do while researching about a company is go to Google, type the company name, and click on the news tab. That again gives me enough information about anything recent that's happening in the company, or why were they in the news typically. Like, and with the recency effect, it always helps in terms of having a really good conversation, or letting the people know that, hey, we know about you, we know about your company, and build that trust, right? And the last thing is about researching on the people. Again, I go read and research about those people, check their profile out, check what is it that they posted, all of those on LinkedIn, right? I also go on other social media, try and see, are they on Twitter? Are the CXOs on Twitter? What are they posting? Any information which can help me to know more about them, about their company, and which will help me for my conversation, right? And a lot of time, companies also post some of the key employees on their website. And if you end up finding that person on the website, do make sure you somehow bring that up in the conversation, because it's always really good, right? So again, two parts to preparation, right? Knowing about you and your company, very, very important, everything that we do. But this is how we prepare for the customer, to know more about the customer. This is how we prepare for the two perspective that I talked about initially, right? This is how we end up preparing or putting our best foot forward for the meeting to have really, really good meeting. And it's a process that I'm talking about. It is really, really important for us to set, and something what we need to do day in, day out. And somebody really popular talked about process. And I think all of us will associate or relate with that person and what he just says. So MS Dhoni, he talks about the process is the most important, is more important than the results. And if you take care of the process, you will get the results. So if you think of it, putting this in the perspective of selling, at the end of the day, it's about how do we go about preparing for a meeting? How do we go about preparing to add value to a customer is really, really important. Because if we are able to do that, we will get the deal, we will win the deal, and we will win the deal at the right value. Something what is really, really important, right? So now, like, I've been talking a lot about trust. I've been talking a lot about preparation. But whose trust are we talking about, or whose trust am I referring to? And why does it matter? Right? What is the most like, remember, when a deal is closing, it doesn't happen in front of you, it happens behind you. If the deal is closing or not closing, anything that happens goes behind us. We are not aware about it. So, what we need to do, it is really important to build the trust, and for us to have a champion in the company. Because when we are not in the room, we still need somebody who represent us in the company, right? And that person is going to be our champion. So by the everything that I talk about here, right? The research that we do, the preparation that we do, the value that we gonna add about or we wanna talk about, it is to showcase value to the people who are gonna be in the meeting and to make somebody our champion. Because champion is the one who is gonna talk on our behalf when we are not in the room. And that champion is the one who's gonna be advocating about your solution, right? Like in a lot of organization, selling while you'll sell to that, like your persona, a lot of team comes into picture to make decision. A legal might take a call, procurement will take a call, CFOs can take a call, right? A lot of engineering team will take a call. So we need somebody who navigate through all of these things, advocate our solution, and that's going to be our champion. He's the one who's gonna take us to different people. He's gonna who's going to help us in terms of understanding what else do we need to do, right? He's the one who's gonna, or they are the one who will be helping us in terms of who else should we reach out to? How do we have conversation with them, right? They will give us enough insights about their own organization, which will help us to curate our offering or which will help us to position our product in a specific way where we win, and at the same time the champion also wins, right? They are the people who will influence the sale because they are the one who believe that we are the team or we are the company who will solve the problem that they have at hand today, right? And they will help us to accelerate the sales because at the end of the day, we have quarterly quotas, half yearly quotas, annual quotas, whatever that can be. Right? There are various things that can change. The pricing can change next year. A lot of time, companies might or might not believe when you say, "Hey, my pricing is going to increase." But the champion will believe because he is trusting you, and we are trusting them. So it's about having somebody who knows that they will win if we win, and they will win if they win. That is the most important thing for us, right? So this is where it all culminates into, guys, right? And all the preparation that we have to do, all like putting customer at the center. It's about we have to put our champion at the center and make sure that champion wins because if he or if they win, we win. And not seeing value, our champion can let us know upfront, saying, "Hey, Piyush, my team do not see value. Maybe it's right time for you to reach out to us 6 months later when we have more budget or when we will start thinking about things that your company is trying to sell us." So what we do is we save time, we continue to build equity with them, and then reach out to them later on. And it has happened with me multiple times, right? uh, where a champion has told me, has given a timeline. I had a specific timeline. They told me that, hey, it will not close. You'll have to be more patient with us because you'll have to navigate through this, but work with us and we'll get you there. And then that's what we did. We worked together and then we end up closing some really, really significant deals, right? So this is where it's all about. All the preparation sort of comes together. And if I just take a pause or if I just think back now, everything that I talked about is from the angle of curiosity, right? It's just about being curious about how can we add value to the customer. But we've been all talking about how can we add value to someone else. Now I just want to take a step back and think about how curiosity can help us to continue to improve ourselves, right? And how do we keep learning? And I will just share a few ways that I keep looking at it or something what I do very, very religiously here, right? The first thing that I do is I evaluate myself like very regularly, and I do that like again in sales we live quarter by quarter by quarter. So this is what I do at the start of every single quarter. That hey, how did my last quarter go? What is it that worked right for me? What is it that didn't work for me? I use a simple framework, which is start, stop, continue. So I try and understand what is it that's going right for me that I should continue. What is it that's not going right for me, which I should stop? And what is it that something that you need to start doing, right? What I was not doing last quarter or quarter after that, or I stopped about a year back that I need to bring it again. right? So it is really, really important for us to continue to evaluate. You can set up a timeline for yourself as to when you want to do, because one of my manager had told me this, which stuck with me forever, that Piyush, what got you here is not going to get you to next level. So we need to always think of the way we're going to up our game. And that's going to happen being curious about our own progress, our own goal, because again, that's how we'll add more value to someone else. That is one. The second is, and yeah, I'm sure all of you might be thinking that, hey, he's talking a lot about LinkedIn. And just to tell you again, this is not because I was at LinkedIn, uh, but LinkedIn has become really, really important part of my entire progress. So here I'm talking about LinkedIn from the perspective of following the right people, right? Not about researching something, but following right people. We're following right thought leaders. So we can follow a lot of people who are in sales, or a lot of leaders who post amazing things on LinkedIn. I follow a lot of companies who post a lot of things which helps me a better sales person, right? So following right people, following the right companies is really, really important. And this is from the perspective of self growth, right? Learning, like taking a lot of courses, and some of the, like, we can take courses from LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Udemy, or any other thing, right? I'm sure a lot of your organizations will have a lot of platform where you'll have various learning modules. Just make sure that we are always learning, right? And we don't necessarily have to learn something new every single time, but it is really important for us to being reminded about some of the things which we sometimes take it for granted, or sometimes we know that, hey, we know this, but we tend not to apply those in our conversation and in our day-to-day life. So continuous learning, again, you can set up a calendar for yourself saying, hey, I'll spend 4 hours every week, every month, 10 hours every quarter, however that sort of suits you, your schedule. But it's really important that we always focus on learning. um, this is something what I've started doing very religiously now over the last couple of years, is listening to podcasts. And there are some amazing podcasts about, and what podcast does is that it allows us to listen to somebody sitting anywhere in the world, right? So I use a lot of Spotify to listen to podcasts. Like, I'm very interested in terms of how our company is building, how what was going in their mind when they were starting that company, how did they navigate through this. So I listen to this podcast called Acquired. Have a look at it if that interests you. It's amazing the way they do. I listen to a lot of sales podcasts, a lot of podcasts on new technology, um, which again I can use in my conversation, personally and professionally at the same time. Books. I'm sure everybody here does that, but yeah, reading books, having a target in mind. And that is something what I've started doing a lot from the start of the year, because earlier I never used to have a target in terms of how much, like how many podcasts or what will I listen in terms of hours, or how many books should I be reading in a year. But now I've started putting out a number to that, so that I know, like, it's just a chase that I've created, because I've realized that's how my mind works sometimes, and it always helps me to get back to that habit. So I make sure I read a book, like at least 2 to 3 books every quarter. And yeah, I'm on track for this year so far. So yeah. And yeah, the last but not the least, continue to uh, read what is your competition doing, right? In terms of, so let's say if you are in like an ed tech company, try and understand what are other ed tech companies are doing. What are some of their wins? Go through their case studies, go through all of these things, which again will help you to understand how can you pitch better. um, how can you build a narrative which can be very different, because you might be adding those values as well, but something that you can change, something that you can continue to tweak and improve your pitch and improve the way you look at things from there, right? So these are some of the things that I do very religiously, and something I just wanted to share with everybody here, right? And yeah, the last but not the least, as they say, curiosity killed the cat. But just remember, curiosity is the best friend of salespeople. We just have to understand how do we implement it day in, day out, and how do we build curiosity as a muscle? Because once we do, everything else will take care of itself. So yeah, thank you so much being patient and listening to me. If anybody has any thoughts or questions, happy to take those.
Great. Thank you so much, Piyush. First of all, for everyone, Piyush just mentioned about Acquired Podcast. So I've shared the link on the chat. If you can just copy paste that for future purpose. So yeah, thank you so much, Piyush. Once again, great session, great takeaways. So what we'll do now is we'll quickly open it up for the Q&A. People would like to ask their questions. So people, how the what we'll follow is that please raise your hand. You can do it from the reaction icon below.
Did I lose Ronit or
Sorry.
okay? No, no. I thought I lost in between, but yeah,
Okay, okay. Apologies. So we'll do the Q&A, Piyush, right now. And what
yeah.
everyone can do is they can raise their hand and we can take their questions. So yeah, people, please raise your hand. Piyush is there to address your questions. Piyush,
And
there's one question from Atif. Okay, Abhijit, I'll just come to you. Atif, would you like to unmute yourself? Can you just raise your hand? Just trying to find you. 1 second. Yeah, Atif, if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, Atif, please go ahead.
Actually, my concern was regarding a newspaper. Just now, sir told that I read daily a newspaper. I also read the Hindu, but I try to understand for sales and marketing perspective. Any better newspaper are there? Normally in the
uh,
Hindu, yeah, there is a perception that those who are preparing for civil services or something like that, diplomacy, bureaucracy, these newspaper are best in India. So similarly for marketing and sales perspective, any specific newspaper would you like to recommend?
um, look, Atif, like what I read is I read Times of India and I read Economic Times. These are the two newspaper that I read, and I continue to just read these two papers for the last 15 years, 20 years. So like at the end of the day, the paper, like yeah. So I read ET purely from business standpoint. And from sales and marketing that you ask, think of it, and then what I talked about, right? In the newspaper, we read about any political thing that happens or any new technology would get introduced. It gets discussed in the newspaper. There are a lot of columns. There are specific business sections about any company raising funds, all of those things, right? And I use all of these information from the sales and marketing perspective. Um, because this is what allows me to have better conversation, right? At the end of the day, if you realize that generative AI again, and I did see somebody just typed about it, is going to help a specific industry, or what are the leaders talking about, or let's say yesterday when I read the head of Bain talking about the role that India will play in the global growth in the coming years. Imagine tomorrow. And yesterday also I had a call with like a leader in, like somebody who was in the company for 27 years in one of the biggest services industry. And I used some of the points in that um, article that I read and use that in my conversation, and then yeah, like it always helps to break ice. It always helps us to showcase ourselves as thought leader, like I was saying. So like you can read any newspaper, that's fine, but it's about what is that you read, and just make sure it's a habit. And we do not again necessarily need to read physical paper. Even if somebody reads e-paper, that's fine, but it's really important to know from the industry standpoint.
As I can understand, you are trying to say that in any newspaper, some columns are fixed. Like there might be a business, there might be a games and sports, there might be a film industry news. So these sections are available in almost all the newspapers. So we have to focus on any particular column. Like suppose if I am interested to understand business news, so we have to read out the business column. But I would like to understand the economics times. You said, na, you read economic times. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the name Economic Times, it mostly talks about economic things and what development and progress, what is happening, and more specific about the industries. Right, not list they are giving priority to the politics things. So, what is
No,
your opinion about this? Because I haven't
Atif,
gone to either.
Atif, it actually does. So what it does is it typically takes view from a national standpoint or international standpoint. What Economic Times probably might not do as much in terms of local issues per se, like give a lot of focus on that. But it does have a sports section. It does have a section around politics. It does have a lot about business. It has a lot about stock market. All of these things help us to build our perspective, help us to again build our knowledge. Because again, if we just take a step back and think when we enter a meeting, we need to be armed with some information beyond our company, beyond our product, right? And this has helped me tremendously in terms of taking care of like what I know in terms of my information, my knowledge, and I get global perspective at the same time. By the way, so I would highly recommend you read and read for a few weeks, and you'll start to see that difference in terms of the information that you are getting.
Yeah, past 20 years, I also read the Hindu newspaper. I am a digital subscriber of it. That's why I am trying to understand and compare between the two newspaper, because already you are reading that one, the Economic Times.
Yes.
That's why
So,
Economic Time might be focusing more on economic related things. That was my perception. That I am trying to confirm from you. That was my intention of question.
got it, got it. So yeah, you are right. It does, but it does think beyond that as well. So thank you so much, though, for asking that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Atif. Abhijit, if you can ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. So first of all, thank you for the amazing session. So I want to understand in terms of B2C, I am into finance and banking. Just wanted to understand how you do the follow up. What I wanted to say that as during follow up, due to regular day to day activity, we also miss some important discussion for the follow up thing. So what I mean is there is any process you follow for the follow up thing since you have a rich experience. Second point, also in terms of competition, the differentiation point, can you give an example कि आपने कैसे किया? Like in terms of same company, you are in a company and you have a competition also. So आप एक example देख के थोड़ा सा guide कर सकते हो?
Sure, sure. So to your first point of how do I follow up, right? Now, for like there are different. So once we've done a meeting, the follow up, what we do becomes fairly standard in terms of what we do there, right? Because we share the MOM of the meeting, we share all the information. But every time I finish a conversation talking with somebody, I always try and set the next steps on that conversation. So if I'm talking or if I'm doing a meeting today, I always try and understand that, hey, how does the next step looks like for you? And when can we connect again? And what is it that you would like to know further from here? Right? So once we've established that, how did this conversation go? And what is the next step? That becomes a cadence for us to follow with that person next time. And we're not just blindsided by what the next step is going to be, right? So use that very religiously to have have a goal for the next meeting set up already. For most of the meeting that I do, I always end up sending out a calendar invite to them, having that conversation set up. And in between, I continue to follow with them, either do a quick call. If there is anything interesting that I find out, I try and send out an email about it. The intent remains that I have to keep my prospect warm, right? Now, I can do that by sending them email, by calling some really important people because that hey, this person is going to be really important for me from a deal win standpoint or getting business standpoint. So we just need to bucket people into knowing that hey, I will because you'll have limited bandwidth today, right? You'll be only able to, let's say, call up 10 people every day. You'll be able to only send 50 emails, or you'll be only able to personalize emails to so many people. So because you will only be able to do things so much, it's about prioritizing, putting people into different buckets, and continue to keep them warm. And how do we keep them warm? Is continue to add more and more value to them. So you are in BFSI. How do you continue to do that? I mean, it's all about that. I was in BFSI selling before LinkedIn, and that's how I used to just be in touch in terms of, hey, we launch a new product, we launch new feature, this is how we're going to solve the problem that we were discussing last time. Continue to get them interested, continue to be top of the mind for them. That is one thing that I keep doing, and that's the philosophy that I sort of lead with in the follow-up.
Thank you so much. And second part, the competition differentiation.
So like how I look at competition at the end of it, I never the first thing that I always think about is competition always helps us grow, right? Because like they open up the market for us, we open a market for them. There is always that back and forth that keeps happening. But when somebody asks me to talk about, hey, how do you differentiate with the competition, I always focus on me. I never talk about what somebody does not have, because it's not for me to talk about, or talk, not the, like, I don't know, for the lack of the better word, the bad things, or some of the things what they do or they don't do. I do not focus on that. It is really important for us to know how, like, what is the differentiation that a product is bringing vis-a-vis any other company today, right? That can be the previous customers that you have, some of the features that your product has, right? Some of the wins that you've recently done, the future roadmap of the product, right? There can be various reasons about why should somebody choose you, or why your last deal that you closed chose you over the competition. So I just try and focus on that, right? So it's really important to understand what is the competition doing, what are they doing, so that you continue to build your pitch about how are you still better, or how can you still add more and more value vis-a-vis them. So it's really important to continue to evaluate that, and I continue to play with it, but always focus on your product and something what it's bringing in terms of value. So yeah, this is something what I typically try and do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhijit. We'll take Srinivas. Srinivas, if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. So, first of all, thank you so much, sir. It was an amazing session, and thank you, Abhijit, sir, too, for asking that question. Like most of my doubts got cleared by that. So, my doubt is like more focused towards interviews, sir. If you could help me. So, the thing is, when I'm trying to give interviews for the sales roles in startups, right, they are asking me that you have to onboard 20 clients in 1 month. So first of all, I used to work as a chief operating officer for a startup. I ran that company for a while, and it used to take me at least 6 months to 1 year to land a high ticket client. But they are expecting me to land 20 onboard 20 clients, not just bringing the prospects. Is it a practical thing that they're expecting, or am I lacking somewhere? Is that one question I have. The second question that I have, which is the final question, is that do I need to do any kind of certifications so that people note me? Because I don't have any documents to prove my 10 years gap, though I ran a business. Other than the skills, I have nothing to show. So these are the two questions. I'm so sorry if it is a little off-board question.
No. But like it's all skills at the end of the day,
Yeah.
Srinivasan. So you don't need a certificate, and then that's one thing about sales in a way, that you cut the industry. There is no certificate per se that is necessarily required, but of course you can continue to learn, right? You can
Yeah.
take courses on various platform and add those on your profile, which always helps your credential and credibility. But is that necessity per se? I do not necessarily think so, right? Um, and to your first question, I would honestly like it's something that you should ask them. Like they might have a hypothesis or a reason why they're asking you, to bring 20 customers on board? Are they doing that already today? How will they help you, right, in terms of helping getting you those 20 customers on a monthly basis? I'm assuming they might be doing 15, 20 today, and that's why they might be expecting you this. So if you think personally, and that's very important skill for us as a salesperson, right, is to ask questions about, like, if somebody asks you something and if you have a doubt, you can always ask them back saying, hey, can you help me understand how can I close it? I have not done this so far. Well, I'm okay to do it, but can you just help me understand how, like, how much customers are you closing today? How many customers do you close today? What sort of support will I get to close it, right? And if you can just help me guide in terms of how can I close 20, because this has been my experience so far, and be very candid and genuine about it, and then try and see what is the reply that you get, and if you think that's a reality or not. Because again, different company operate very differently. It's very difficult to say is the expectation right or not. Somewhere you might just be able to get 2 customer monthly, somewhere you might be able to get 100. God knows, right? Like, the point is, what are you selling? How popular is that company? What sort of support will you get? What is happening today? These are the few things that you should try and find out, and then make up a decision in terms of, hey, can you actually get 20 or not? Will that set you up for success or not?
Awesome, sir. And I'm definitely going to try Pestle framework for my knowledge for the day, for the content that I'll be building for myself. So thank you so much for that framework, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you so much. We have Abdullah. Abdullah, if you can just unmute yourself. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, I have a sore throat. First of all, I would like to thank you, sir, for such a nice presentation, and the curiosity was a new thing I have learned. I have actually 25 years of experience in sales, and over the period of 25 years, I have found that it is the most higher and fire, like most higher and fire type of job in sales, where people don't perform and they got fired very easily. Unlike operations or other marketing people. Number one. Number two is one second thing is like their paycheck is been sometime hold and having thread. So is there any association like we have an association in Advocate Bar Council, we have Taxi Chalak Association, we have Matadi Kamgar Association, but the sales who every organization there is a huge military army of sales, maybe 35% of all the population, corporate population, 35% consists of sales itself. So is there any association to protect the right of this salesperson where they are being tortured, sometimes pressurized, sometimes bad words we have to encounter sometimes. So is there anything protective law to protect such innocent salespeople? And lastly, once you are crossed 35, you are nowhere in the sales industry. You have to. So, is there any thing that after 35, this salesperson who have done huge service, is there any method that he can get after 35 this type of role? Only that thing. Please help me.
Oh, like, to your first question, honestly, I'm not like expert in terms of knowing like if there is an association or what somebody should do and not. But at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. If somebody is not able to enjoy the work, not able to do, it's like, I think all of us can make a personal call in terms of, do we want to continue there if you do not like it, if you're not seeing value being added to yourself. So everybody has different philosophy that they live with, right? Like, something that I keep reading in any role, we have to see, are we growing? Are we earning? We need to make sure that we have at least one of the two. If both of it is not happening, then we need to think about, is that the right role for me or not? And I don't know if that's the framework that whoever that you're asking for can sort of look at it and then find out what is the best for them, right? So so yeah, that is one, but honestly, I do not have a very direct or a proper answer to the first part of your question. And for the second, I think it's never about age. Like I'm about 35, and when I got into Rephrase, I was about 35 then. Uh, it's all about what value are we bringing on the table, Abdullah, right? What is that role? What type of skill set that role requires? And are you able to bring that skill on the table? If you want to get into that role and if you know you don't have that skill, then how do you work on it so that you can continue to be in a position where you can continue to add value? It's all about skill set after a point, and it's all about the value that you can bring to that company, to that role, and to the organization that you will try and sell into. That is the larger measure. It's never about age, and I would probably tell you that it like it's not something that we should think about from that angle. Just about like continue to work on our skills, and that should take us to places where we should go to.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insight. And you are absolutely right that we should not think in that angle so that we always think positive and go ahead in our life. Thank you very much, sir.
Ronit, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Ram Mohan wanted to ask a question. Ram, can you just unmute yourself?
Hi
Yes, Ram,
Piyush,
please
good
go ahead.
afternoon. Thank you so much for giving like a lot of insight. And as you have spent like quite a lot of time working with LinkedIn, my question is how to use LinkedIn effectively, and what courses and tools do you suggest us to acquire like a lot of clients?
So to the first part of your question, how you should use LinkedIn, and I spoke a lot about various ways that I use LinkedIn. One thing is, uh, for my personal growth, I follow a lot of people, a lot of pages, right, on LinkedIn. So there are a lot of sales specific pages on the platform. There are a lot of leaders who are on the platform who are very active. That we can follow. They post very regularly on the platform. Uh, Try and like and read all of those, and I'll probably tell you you can take it to next level where they pose a lot of questions where a lot of people engage with them. We can actually answer some of those questions, try and get their perspective about it. You can become a thought leader as well. So LinkedIn you can use from for your own self-learning to learning about the company that you're gonna pitch into, um, like read more about industry, all of the things. So that's the first thing that I do every time I prepare. Every single day, I go on LinkedIn multiple times for various purposes. A lot of it is to acquire knowledge on various things. So that's how I use LinkedIn, and I would highly recommend. Um, we do not have to connect with people, by the way, right? On LinkedIn, we can just start to follow any person. We can follow from. There are a lot of like now we have pretty much all of our cricketers from Sachin Tendulkar to a lot of Bollywood stars. Everybody is coming on LinkedIn. Uh, like we have Satya Nadella, who is very active on the platform, to Bill Gates, who is very active on the platform. So there are leaders across. So you can choose who do you want to follow. You can choose what is it that you want to learn more about, and try and pick people from there. You can follow your own leaders from within the Indian industry, so on and so forth, right? So that is one. And in terms of courses, again, there are a lot of courses because in sales there are various things that we need to work on, right? Now it's important to evaluate for your sales what is it that is important. So let's say if you do a lot of CXO selling, then you need to do a lot of courses around how do you build your executive presence, how do you talk with leaders. So there are a lot of specific courses around that. Let's say you sell to a lot of CTOs, so then while you need to know a lot about how to sell to them, but you also need to have a lot of information about technology. So to sell to them, it's not just about sales skill, it's also about those technical skills that you can talk with them. You can talk their language, which is very important. So taking courses on that is like essentially to build the functional knowledge, right? Not just the technical knowledge, which in our case is sales, which
Right.
will just help. So understanding what type of sales you are in, what type of persona that you sell in, understanding that market and taking following right sort of audiences for that, taking courses for that is something what is really important. And that's the framework that I'll sort of give you to pick the right people and to pick the right courses for you.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Got it.
Thanks for asking that, Ram.
Yeah. Thanks, Piyush.
Yeah. Thank you, Ram.
Because my target audience are like B2B. As if we talk about like LinkedIn, we also have Sales Navigator, right? LinkedIn Navigator, something like that, which will help to acquire B2B customers. And when I looked into LinkedIn Learning, there are thousands of courses, out of which since you've been been part of LinkedIn for so long, so I wanted to hear from you that what would be the best course, if I have to look at B2B.
What I would suggest is you can search by skills.
Okay.
So again, I talked about, let's say you can type B2B. Right. You can type in B2B specific industry, or again, if you want to do CXO selling, if you want to build pipeline. So there are this thousands of courses are divided in various categories.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pick, let's say, top three skills that you want to continue to work on. Then put those skills, and you'll start to sort of shorten the course count. And then you can look at from the popularity standpoint, which is the best course among those. Like there is rating, there are feedback reviews. So then you can go on and choose, let's say, 3 course, 5 course, which is adding the most value for the skills within sales for you that you want to add.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Piyush. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ram. We have a question from Sushma. She has mentioned that how do you use tools like ChatGPT or Bard during research? So if you can throw some light on that, Piyush.
Sushma, are you talking about researching the company? Is that what you mean?
So Sushma, I think, has left the meeting, maybe because of some reason. But generally during sales research, right? If you can generalize it for everyone, Piyush. If I'm having a organization and then I want to do the research for that particular organization with all the approaches that you have mentioned, right? How do I have Chat GPT also be part of that process that you have mentioned during your presentation?
Yeah. Look, I continue to evaluate the best way to use ChatGPT because it has so much and it continues to evolve, right? But I use ChatGPT a lot in terms of how do I build if I'm doing cold outreaches. I use ChatGPT's help in terms of fine-tuning my email or figuring out some of the things that I'm not aware about. So I talked about pestle framework, right? Maybe that's something that you can go put on ChatGPT that, hey, can you explain what pestle framework and how can I use it in my research? And ChatGPT will sort of help you giving that information. So while I continue to Google a lot of things, I use a lot of these generative AI platform as well to try and get all of this information in terms of how can I go about things, right? So for any part of the sales process, if you want to understand, you are prospecting in a specific way today, but you can go and ask this to ChatGPT. That hey, how do I prospect into a company which is into telecom industry? See what sort of information that it's giving you, and are there some insight that you do not use personally today, and then you'll be able to use, right? So uh, I continue to use it in on a daily basis in different ways. What I would largely recommend is whatever you do on a daily basis, right? You can just try and post some of those questions to ChatGPT and figure out, are there a different approach or a better approach to do things, right? Like I'm saying, I use it for my cold outreaches, use it for how do I send follow-up emails, right? Get some ideas from there and then try and build, get my thought process around something and then frame that email in mail or my cold call that I'm going to do to somebody. So I use it for that. I use it for So I recently had an accident, and I'm still at home for last 45 days. I use ChatGPT to understand that, hey, how do I use this 45 days since I can't go out? How do I continue to learn? How do I continue to keep myself calm at home? So I just don't use it for my professional use, but at a personal usage. How do I build um, like strength? Like I broke my leg, so I asked about what are the ways that I can continue to uh, build strength for my leg and stuff like that. So I don't just restrict it for a specific thing, but I've then again used this as a muscle. Like for everything we do, Google, I also sort of ask question to ChatGPT and try and understand how does it help, or what does it have to tell me, which I don't know today.
Great, great, Piyush. So, any other question before we move to the rapid fire question, which I have it for Piyush? Again, definitely will be some of the questions which he has not been communicated, so will be very much impromptu. But any other question, people, before we move on to that? If you want to raise your hand, you can do that. It'll take a few seconds. Okay. So, Piyush, I'll start off with a few questions and would love to hear your take on. Yeah, please tell me.
No, sorry. Yeah, my headphones battery just died down, so now I can hear you.
Okay. So, Piyush, there are a few questions. Definitely will be an impromptu kind of a rapid fire. So, the first question is, what are the traits of a successful sales professional?
Very, very interesting question. Like when you say trait, you're asking about skill set again?
Skill set, I mean, professionally or personally as well as a person.
Look, when I got into sales, or what my initial idea about sales was that, hey, it is for people who are extrovert, who are very outgoing, all of that. But that changed drastically once I got into sales, because I've seen some of the best salespeople are absolute introverts. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because everything that I was talking during my session, it was all about having the mindset of problem solving. That is very, very important. Most of the B2B selling and what we now call as consultative selling, right? It is about understanding somebody's problem, try and see how does my product or solution fit in that, and how will they succeed. So if you have that sort of mindset, uh, that helps us a long way, because we're not doing transactional selling where somebody buys and then they won't see you again. If you want to sell, or if you want somebody to use your tool again and again and again, it is really important that we've added value to that person. So understanding what value is and having that mindset is something what is very important. And again, the two skill that I talked about in my presentation, perseverance, like being patient about it, being patient with yourself, being patient with learning. Like sales, we see more losses than wins, right? So it's very important for us to keep ourselves calm. It's really important to believe that it's fine, it happens, take it on the chin, wake up next day, fight another day. So it's really important. So having that perseverance, and again curiosity. So these are the things which are really, really important. Something what I keep working on always. And other traits I feel are important.
Great. What are the tools that every sales professional should know in 2023?
Like while like a lot of sales tool is different companies will provide to different people. So I'm not going to get into those, but I'm going to talk about something what everybody has. It's just about how do you use it. So again, can't fall short of recommending LinkedIn, and using LinkedIn in a specific way, right? Which is very, very important. Like for like I talked about, following right people. So important. Imagine you read, and people put something which you can read within a minute, and it's epiphany about, hey, this is also possible, right? And being that is something, using that, it's very, very important. I talked about like Google using news using Google itself, it is so helpful in terms of understanding so many things, preparing well for the meeting, right? So that is another thing what I will absolutely recommend for us to use. So it's not about new tools, but it's just about figuring out how do you use that effectively. um like in your organization, if you have like a top salesperson, going talking to them, hey, what is it, how did you close this deal, what is it that you do, like understanding what is it that they do different. So like what you'll realize over a period of time, that people don't use different things or do things have use different or lot many more tools. It's just about what we have, how do we use it differently is something what is really important. And understanding that quarter on quarter, the self-evaluation that I talked about is something super duper important, super critical to sort of use.
Got it. Taking a cue from your last answer, tell me the top five sales professional whom you have met, interacted, or you have followed, and you find them the best in the business.
Like, to be honest, it's very difficult to put a name to this, because I follow a lot of people, but I can just tell you, like I follow the sales guy. There's a page called the sales guy, and they put a lot of memes which are very funny, but then it starts the day on a very lighter note, and it always helps. They put really amazing content there. So that's one thing that I follow. The founder of the page, I forgot his name. His surname is Disney though. Like, he again posts a lot of things. He was the one again about a few years back posted about salespeople should not be selling but solving problem, and he wrote a really good article. You should go check that out. So I would recommend following that page, following Gong. That's another company that you can follow. And there are a lot of leaders from Gong who post amazing content on LinkedIn. So you can then follow those. The CEO of LinkedIn, he posts a lot of amazing content on LinkedIn. His name is Dan Shapiro. So that's another person that you should for sure follow. Within Indian ecosystem, like we had one of our leaders within LinkedIn, Tariq Ahmed. He posts a lot of content on LinkedIn and really amazing content on sales. Really great thought leader. So yeah, you can like follow these people. I can send out a list later on because I don't have the name of the people top of my mind. But to tell you frankly, the people that I follow, they comment a lot on the other sales thought leaders. And if I like some content, I start to follow them as well. So I keep doing that more and more and more. And I keep getting more and more information from them. So it's not about like a person eventually, to be honest, but it's about continuously sort of going. And then once you built out a list of people, or once you start to follow a few people, you'll start to get exposed to a lot many more people on a daily basis that you can start to follow.
Got it. Talking about targets, right? What's your mental model when you approach a quarterly target?
Look, what happens with targets are typically at the end of the quarter. Imagine somebody who is just at 50% and you just have a week. By default, we are not in the best frame of mind at that point in time, right? Like how we are as a person in a difficult situation, it gets very difficult, right? Like if I just draw a parallel with cricket, when somebody's chasing 200 runs versus chasing 350 runs, the mindset of that person changes a lot. Everybody like scored 50 runs, 70 runs, 80 runs when we are chasing smaller target. When chasing high target, or when we are chasing 100 runs in 7-8 overs, it's a very different skill set that we need. So it's important to keep calm at that point in time. And that's where I've always appreciated someone like Dhoni, where he talks about process. So what I always try and do is my intent was always that, okay, break the number. So if I had, let's say my target is to bring 100 this quarter, I always try and work in such a way where by the mid of the quarter, I should be done with 75 ideally, right? So I always want to put in effort upfront, as much effort upfront as possible, because that's where we have minimum pressure. That's where we are uh, in the best frame of mind. So that's where I want to put in more and more and more effort, because at the end of the quarter, I might behave somewhere. I might get desperate to close that deal. I might lose certain deals because I've been too pushy. And it gets very naturally to all of us. As much as we do not want to be that person, it does happen. So the best way is to understand that it happens and be as prepared as possible. So what I used to do, or what I typically do, is try and close my quarter ideally in the first 2 months. Now think about it. You started, like your quarter started, think from the next quarter. Jan 1st is when your next quarter starts, right? If you try and close that quarter in the first 2 months and put all the effort that you have in the first 15 days to 21 days, all the prospecting that we have to do it very upfront, because you know that to close a deal, it takes a month. So if there is any new conversation that you are having starting March, you're not going to close within that month. You'll be lucky if you are able to close. So knowing all of those nuances, you have to have all the conversation starting or starting at least by mid of the year or mid of the quarter for you, right? Which is by 15th of Feb. So knowing that you have to do heavy lifting upfront, that is very, very important. So thinking about planning to close your first quarter in 2 months, and imagine if you are able to do that. And I would do that a lot at LinkedIn or something, when I keep trying that. Start of March, that's when I started to think that, hey, my next quarter is going to be from March, April till June end. So again, that is what my mental framework used to be, that, hey, now my next quarter is still, let's say, 3 months, but it starts previous quarter, which other people do not know. Other people do not need to know about it. That's my mental framework. And that's how I used to lead it. It's about doing heavy lifting upfront, so that we are able to close the right deals at the right time. And we do not necessarily close something short. So if you know a deal can become really big, we have to be patient. We be that, right? Work with them and close it at the right value for you.
Got it. What's your best objection handling technique?
Like one is to ask why, back to that question. So somebody asked that, hey, you are too expensive. Like asking, why do you think so? And how are, like, what is it that you're comparing us when you say expensive, right? So it is important that, like, objection handling is a great way for us to understand more about what are they thinking, get more information as well, and then answering that. So like the easiest thing, and it happens with everybody, where we go defensive when somebody do that, but it's a skill that we need to continue to work on. But it's fine. Objection handling is a great way for us to convince that person that, or change the mind or the thought process of that person, that it's like, while they're right in thinking of things in a specific way, that, hey, yes, we are expensive, we can be expensive, but we are able to solve a problem which can be much bigger for you. So which is essentially saying that we'll be able to deliver value proportionately to that, or a much bigger value to you. So it's all about ROI and not just about price point. So asking back, why do you think so, right? Or having things about that, hey, this is not the first time that I'm hearing this. The company that I closed last week had the same objection. But then this is what we realize in terms of what are we trying to solve for. So knowing things about your product, knowing things about having the right set of information, but at the same time asking back, like asking why to them, is very, very important. And I would actually suggest or recommend a book around. There is a Never Split a Difference. It's a book which I would highly recommend in negotiation. Like, it is written by a person who was negotiator, like like would be one of the best negotiator in the world. He's done a lot of negotiation for the US government. His name is, I think, Dan Voss, if I'm not wrong. Really, really good book. He lays out a lot of amazing frameworks and ideas in terms of how we should do that. And a technique that he talks about, which is mirroring and all of it, really helpful in terms of objection handling.
Got it. Apart from this book, what are the other top 5 books that every sales professional should read?
Look, again, like various ways to look at books. So, like, Never Split a Difference is one book that I would absolutely recommend. Another book which I read on like about year and half back, which was Challenger Sales. Like it talks about a very different methodology of sales, right? And then they back it by a lot of research and examples. For sure, we should read that. I also think sales is a lot about psychology, right? It's not just about that, hey, going selling. It's also about understanding. So there are a lot of books around like Thinking Fast and Slow. Now it's a very deep book. It's a huge book, but I really like that, and I try and use some of those approaches in my like daily life, in sales, all of those. So books like those, books around how some of the amazing companies have been built, like on thought leadership. So like books, Steve Jobs' book, right? Jobs. That's again really good book that I really enjoy reading. Learned a lot. Now the same author has written a new book on Elon Musk right now, which I'll probably read very soon. But it's about building the holistic perspective, right? From the sales standpoint, and not just about reading books around just sales, but like I said, psychology in terms of how leadership sort of things. So like picking all of those books which are of your interest are really important. Like it can be self-help books, biographies of people. So there is this book called Good to Great, really good framework that is has for us in terms of how can we approach certain things, or how companies have gone from good to great. So yeah, like a lot of books to recommend, but I would rather talk about, not just look at purely from just sales standpoint, or books that just talks about sales framework, but look from all the other angle, because selling, again, like I said, needs a lot of skills. We talked about curiosity and perseverance. There can be a lot of books around that we can actually read.
Got it. So Piyush actually was mentioning about Walter Isaacson. He has written books on
Absolutely.
Elon Musk, Jobs, as well as Albert Einstein as well, and Jeff Bezos as well. So please do check him out on Amazon. And the Amazon link for the book that he mentioned previously, Never Split a Difference, is on the comment section. So Piyush, before we close this session, I really wanted to know about the 5 consecutive years of winning the club. And that would be my last question. And we would like to end the session on that note. So please help us understand because that was, I think, 2017. You were in your second year at LinkedIn, if I'm not wrong. 2017 or 18 when you started, right? Second year of LinkedIn. 2015 you started, right?
15 I started, yeah. So
Yeah.
yes. I won my
So
first
please throw us some light on your LinkedIn journey and how that happened. What are the challenges? What are the success that happened in the midway? And at the end, what were your takeaways from the entire journey?
And to be honest, a lot of thing is what I've summed up here, and it's all part of my learning. And I've been like very fortunate to have worked with amazing managers, some really good salespeople who I could call up, learn people in action in terms of how they're closing such bigger deals. What is it that they're doing? What is it that they're doing different? What is it that I can learn? So I've always approached my sales process with absolute curiosity in terms of I just want to be better. What I'm today, I want to be better next quarter, better quarter after that. So for that, I need to be on top of certain things. I need to be reading things. I need to be um, working. I need to be talking with people. Um, and that's something what I continue to do always. And I've approached my sales uh, exactly what I was talking about. It's all about, and it took me some time. So I started my journey at LinkedIn as SD, and I work with the best salespeople there, who were my like the sales managers who I was supporting. That role gave me great insight in terms of how some of the really top people who are 10 plus years of experience then doing enterprise sales, how do they think about selling? How amazingly they go about selling? How do they go about putting those hard yards? So my training got done by some really amazing set of people up front. And I use that to my biggest advantage, because nobody can take that away from you, or very few people get such exposure at the start of their sales career. And I've always believed in one, adding value to every single conversation. So that has always helped. Number two, um, never like, you might lose some really big deals, or you might win a really big win. You might have a really massive win. Um, it's great to celebrate, and it's great to sulk around, but remember, like at the end of the day, have those controlled emotions, right? Like we can have bad quarters, and that's absolutely fine, very natural. Or you can have really bad days on a daily basis. Like think about, again, if I just have to draw a parallel, Virat Kohli, who is the most consistent batsman in ODI, he is averaging 58, 59. But if you look at, probably he's averaging 50 plus, right? But I think he's scoring 50 every 3 or 4 matches. So he doesn't get 50 every single match. But it's about, when he gets a 50, he makes it count. And that is what is important. So take it on the chin. If you have a bad day, it's fine. But how do you regroup? How do you continue to work with people? How do you continue to upskill yourself? And that's something what I've always been focused on. Um, and that helped me. So and from club perspective, at the start of the year, I would never think about like going to club, but I would have my own target. I would think about club only in the last quarter. For the first 3 quarters, I would have my targets about how do I approach sales. Like one thing I talked about, I would always think about closing my quarter in the first 2 months. So if I'm able to do that, then I would have target about closing my year in let's say 9 months or 3 quarters, and then accelerating there. So I would have many targets, many milestone, and I would keep evaluating how am I doing against that. Am I behind that? If I am, then what is it that I need to do? And I was very relentless in terms of how to go about prospecting, how do I go about doing more and more meetings. So that had become my second nature at that point in time. And yeah, helped me then and helping me now.
Got it. So thank you so much, Piyush. On that note, we would like to conclude this session once again. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation and giving us your time on a weekend. So thank you so much. Everyone has definitely enjoyed a lot of knowledge nuggets that you have shared, insights. A bright smile on Sai's face communicate and conveys the same thing. Likewise on mine as well. So thank you so much, Piyush, once again.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here. Um, and thank you so much for everyone being patient and yeah, staying for an hour and a half with me.
Cool. So, on that note, everyone who is on this call as well as watching us live, we at Juno School will keep inviting industry leaders on for the Juno Masterclass so that they can share their knowledge and you can learn it from them who has learned it from their experience, and so that you can also accelerate your career by not repeating those mistakes and also banking on their learnings, right? So please do follow on all social media platforms so that you stay updated on all the events that we do. And yeah, on that note, let's connect once again next Saturday at 12 p.m. with Mr. R. Mukund, who is the author of Don't Sell, Make Them Buy. And yeah, we'll look forward to everyone joining and having a great jam on that day as well on sales, which is our theme to help everyone learn that. And on that note, this is Ronit from the marketing team of Juno School of Business signing off.
Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Piyush. Thank you so much, everyone.